and so on. Um, and particularly uh, in the environment in which I teach, uh, which happens to be a rather, you know, suburban area. Many of the students uh, are not African American, or most of them are white, or in this area they are often also from different countries, such as uh, India or China. So getting them to have an understanding of the civil rights study is hard. But one thing they can understand is the idea of having a dream to make the world a better place. And that can lead to some interesting discussions about, you know, what kinds of things do you have a dream about that would make the world a better place? Maybe no more fighting. Or maybe that no one will ever get sick. Or that everyone will have fun. And just like Martin's dream, which has come true to a large degree, dreams such as those also can come true. We've been talking about them. For instance, we've been talking about the idea of how our healthcare system is going to be improving dramatically and tremendously thanks to technology, so that more people have access to better healthcare, and that is a huge step towards having that dream, or achieving that dream, that people never get sick. Or a dream that there will be no more fighting. Well, we've taken huge steps towards that. And even though we live in uncertain times at the moment, it's an amazing achievement to see that major countries, and I'm talking about European countries and the Americas, of course, have given up warring with each other. There hasn't been a war between European and American countries for a very long time, and a concerted effort through international laws and international organizations to focus on this continues to make that so. Yes, these things are threatened, and it's something we should be aware of if we want to continue that dream and move it forward. But just to be aware that it has moved forward, it has started to materialize. So these dreams are not unreachable. One dream from one of the kids is, I have a dream that everyone will have fun. Everyone will have fun. Well, when I think of that, what comes to mind is the topic of last week's and the week before. One of the predictions that we've talked about happening within maybe the next 10 to 20 years is the idea of a universal income. And that's a base income for everyone, regardless. It's a topic that's talked about now, but many people feel is unattainable. And we talked about some very good, strong reasons, given current trends economically given the increase in technology, which is destined to put a lot more people out of work, that not only will this be, an achievable idea, a reasonable idea, it's going to become a necessity. So what seems like an unachievable dream is not. And remember, we're creating it all at the highest level of our beings. So if we're creating it all, well, we can create anything. If we focus on it, we think about it, if we tap into the energy of what it means. So we talked about the future of the economy last week, and that included that idea of the universal income. And now this week, with the time I have left, I think we can focus on the future of climate change. These changes that are bound to come, bound to happen, will lead to some changes in the way we live our lives. And the way nations interact with each other. You may know that recently, in 2018, a report from the most unlikely of unlikeliest places, the Trump administration, gave us some very, very sobering news about the depth and breadth of climate change and what's really happening. Basically, that within the next 25 years, if we don't take some very drastic measures, the Earth could quite possibly be uninhabitable. The report, what was different about this report is that whereas other reports have been very hopeful about measures we can take to prevent much of what's happening with climate change, this one was quite different in that it didn't have that sort of optimistic perspective. In fact, it was doubtful that nations would undertake enough effort to keep the global warming under 2%. And the study says that, and this is a quote from the study, our study indicates that if emissions follow a commonly used business-as-usual scenario, there is a 93% chance that global warming will exceed 4 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. They're trying to keep it at 2, knowing that even at 2 there's going to be consequences. But this study is saying that it's going to be very hard to do that if the current mindset continues. The likelihood that it states here, 93%, is an increase on past estimates which placed it at 62%. Now, scientists use these climate models just to kind of project how things will happen. And in these models, they use this, what he calls business as usual scenario, in which emissions continue at the same rate. And the range of increase in temperature ranges from 3.2 Celsius to 5.9 Celsius. So that's very sobering. But what does that mean? I mean, those are just numbers. What are the effects that this will have? Well, according to NASA website, and the Center for Science Education, the rise of temperatures, which they are, which we mentioned, could be as high as 4 degrees Celsius, will have numerous impacts on different regions. For example, temperature increases are expected to be greater on land than over oceans, and greater at higher latitudes than in the tropics and mid-latitudes. So some of the things we're even seeing now, changing precipitation, warmer average global temperature will cause a higher rate of evaporation, causing the water cycle to speed up. More water vapor in the atmosphere will lead to more precipitation, more rain. And I can tell you, just from where I am, where I'm living, we've had more rain this year than ever before, and it doesn't seem to be stopping. Melting snow and ice, you've heard about the melting glaciers, ice sheets, all of these things. The amount of sea ice floating in the ocean is expected to decrease over the 21st century too, as well as ice sheets. And that will lead to rising sea levels, of course. Sea levels rise because of those melting glaciers and ice sheets, and also because the ocean water expands as it gets warmer, and it increases its volume. And so they're expecting that the sea level, during the 20th century, the sea level rose between 4 to 8 inches. And the thermal expansion and melting ice contributed to about half of that. And they're expecting that by the year 2100, models are predicting a rise between 8 and 20 inches. Acidic ocean water, the Earth's oceans, will act as a buffer against climate change by taking up some of the excess heat and carbon dioxide. That's a helpful thing. But in the long run, they're saying that carbon dioxide combined with seawater forms weak carbonic acid, and scientists believe this process has reduced the pH balance of the oceans by about 0.1 pH since pre-industrial times. More acidification of up to 0.35 pH is expected by the year 2100. What does that mean? Acidic ocean water can cause problems for marine organisms, our fish, also ocean currents, driven by differences in